Hey, welcome back to the Kelly Roach Show. Today we are diving into the topic of how do we make sure that our kids are in fact ready to launch, right? And this is a really important and relevant topic for this particular moment in time because let's be honest, a lot of kids these days aren't ready to launch when they should be, right? And I think that we can all agree that we want our children to be courageous, to be confident, to have great self-worth, to have great work ethic. And when it is time for them to step out on their own, we want them to have the mindset and the skill set that's required to go out in the world and to be successful. And so today I want to break down a little bit of what you can do, especially as an entrepreneurial parent, to make sure that when it's time, your kids are in fact set up for success and ready to lead. Now, I record this show today because one of the most common pieces of feedback that I get from people when they interact with Madison is they comment on just her maturity, how well spoken she is, how she is proactive, she takes initiative, she's a leader. And people pick up on this very, very quickly and they comment on this constantly. And this was very much by design. This didn't happen by accident. She didn't come out of the womb this way. This was a definitive decision by Billy and I about the way that we have been cultivating her perspective on the world and her way of showing up and carrying herself since birth, right? And I think that it's never too late to look at the generational cycles that we want to break in terms of the habits that we mirror to our children, the phrases that they hear us say over and over again, and the way that we interact with them and intentionally set them up for a great life, right? And it's really, really interesting because the automatic tendency of entrepreneurs and even people that have built successful careers for themselves, if they didn't come from having a lot, the initial instinct and the immediate desire is always to give our kids everything that we never had, right? And we do a lot for Madison, and so no judgment there. Of course, that's the instinct that you want to be able to create experiences and do things for your kids that weren't available to you. But the risk and the danger is that, you do so much for them and you give so much to them that they don't learn the life skills that are actually essential for them to go out in the world and to have a great life, right? If we prevent our kids from experiencing hardship or failure, then they won't have those critical skills and the mindset that's necessary to successfully navigate challenges that will inevitably come their way. And there's going to be a point in time where we won't be able to step in and intervene for them, right? So let's talk a little bit first about really getting clear on what are the things that you can do for your kids and instill in your kids that no one can ever take away from them. And I think this is such a great perspective, not just for how we think about cultivating our children, but also how we think about building ourselves, right, as leaders. And so really thinking about what are the things that we can give our kids that can never be taken away. And I think the first and most important one is emotional presence. Right? If you think about what you most craved from your parents and what you probably desire that you had even more of, it probably wasn't so much the financial things that they did for you, but it was their availability to be present and emotionally involved with your life, right? And so I think especially for busy entrepreneurs, this is the highest risk area, and it's why it's the thing that I'm mentioning first. It's really easy as a business leader or as an entrepreneur to constantly be saying to yourself, I'm doing it all for the family, I'm doing it all for my kids. And in this pursuit of doing it all for your family or thinking that you're doing it all for your kids, in many instances, you're present, but your presence is not there, right? You're emotionally not available for your children because you're always distracted. You always have your mind on something else. There's always something going on with the business. And so you're there, but you're not really invested in the moment that you're in. And I think this is the number one thing that I had to learn and that I had to actively work on becoming a parent. And it's something that I still to this day am actively working on every single day to try and get better about when I am with Madison, when I'm with my family, being focused on being emotionally present and available. And I've shared this on the podcast many times. That's why so many times when I'm out with my family, I leave my phone at home. I do that really intentionally because I know that if I have that phone in my hand, there's always a thought running through my mind of, oh, did I forget about this? Oh, what about that? Oh, I should reach out to this person about that. Oh, let me remind the team about that. Oh, let me follow up on that one thing. There's always something happening on social media. So you have to know what barriers you have to create for yourself in order to intentionally set up an environment that's going to create that presence for your children and that availability for them. And I think that, especially as a business leader today, I think it is a skill that you have to build, because everything that we're being exposed to and the way that we're building our businesses actually is in conflict with that. And so don't feel bad if it's something that you're not good at or that you have to work on. Probably everyone listening to this does in some way, shape, or form. The second thing is really focusing on teaching our children. And this is something that Billy and I have been super, super passionate about and committed to since Madison was born. And this is really understanding the difference between what our children learn in school versus what they actually need to know to navigate life, work, and relationships successfully. And to be honest, most of what they need to navigate life successfully, they are not going to learn in a traditional school. And the sooner that you realize this, the sooner that you can proactively make a plan for how you develop your children and how you cultivate the learning that you are going to do with them outside of the traditional classroom so that they're actually gaining the development that they need that's going to set them up for success in life. And so too much to cover here. I'll cover more in future episodes about this. Obviously, Billy and I have made the decision to homeschool Madison next year, this being one of many, many reasons why. But what we are finding is with the immense amount of time that our kids spend away from the home at school every day, it's leaving very little time for us to actually work on these life skills, these foundational things that we believe are actually the most important things that our kids need. And so that was one of many reasons why we decided to homeschool. Homeschool obviously is not right for everyone. And this isn't a decision that we took lightly. We were talking about this and thinking about this for multiple years leading up to this decision, and then intensively talking about it for 6 months to a year before we finally made the decision. And it's a huge one, obviously. But what I would say is if you're not going to go that direction of homeschool, you do have to figure out what are the life lessons that you really want to instill in your children, and what can you do to get on some type of path where you're consistently progressing towards their ability to consume and digest and embody those principles that probably you learned the hard way and would have wished that someone had helped you to understand earlier in life and would have made a really big difference for you. The third big one is a faith foundation. And again, depending on what type of school your child goes to, they may or may not be exposed to any type of faith foundation. And even if your child goes to a school that has faith as a component of the school, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is their lived experience at home, right? And we know that when people have faith, people have hope. When people believe in something greater and bigger than themselves, they live with a moral compass. When people are working towards something beyond just their earthly existence and possessions, it motivates you to live your life in a certain way, to show up in the world in a certain way. And so finding a way to make sure that faith foundation is a part of what you're doing with your children outside of whatever exposure they're getting in school or in that 1 hour in church is going to absolutely strengthen their character. It's going to give them hope. It's going to give them a moral compass. It's going to give them a foundation for which they navigate the world. And it's going to give them so much more strength in the ability to deal with the hurdles that will inevitably come their way and that they're going to have to deal with, right? And these are things that, as much as we love our kids and as much as we want to prevent them from having suffering or going through things, they're going to deal with the things that are part of life, right? And so it's better for us to be able to prepare them. A love of fitness. It sounds so funny, right? Because you grow up and you go to gym class and you play sports and all of those things, but no one really teaches you about how important it is to understand the caring and loving that your body needs in order to keep you healthy and strong for a lifetime, that your body is a temple, that this is a machine, it's a chemistry lab that is constantly in flux all the time, and that taking care of it by stretching and taking care of it by staying active and being physically fit is not just something for gym class or because there's a sport that they just so happen to love, but that it has to be deeply ingrained in them as a way of life outside of the classroom and outside of just a sport that they play. It's understanding the importance of fitness as a way of life and understanding what your body actually needs to perform optimally and to carry you through life successfully. And that also comes with having that conversation about the way that you treat your body and the things that you put in your body, right? And hand in hand with a love of fitness is understanding about nutrition and eating as fuel, not as entertainment. Our entire society, our entire culture does nothing but train children that you eat for entertainment. And so it is not surprising that our population is obese, that our population is sick, that our children don't understand why eating, red dyes and junk food and fried things constantly. I'm disgusted. I go out to restaurants with my family constantly, try to order vegetables. Half the restaurants don't even put vegetables on the menu anymore, because they know the population is so dumb that they have bought into a diet where they no longer eat vegetables. And parents don't even question this for their children. They have entire children's menus with not a vegetable on it. This should be so angering to everyone that they are intentionally making our children sick. And the thing is unless you intervene and unless you teach your children and you have a ferocity about teaching them the importance of nutrition, teaching them that food is for fuel, teaching them about how the body works, teaching them how to select foods, how to evaluate the difference between something that's being marketed as healthy versus something that actually is healthy, the difference between eating raw foods and processed foods, right? Unfortunately, these are things that are coming up for us now that we weren't taught early on, right? But we have to intentionally teach these things to our children. They're not going to get it in school. They have to get it from you. And again, it's going to shape and shift their entire perspective on life. Okay, a couple other things, and then we're going to talk about the tactical things, because I know you want to get into the tactical things, but I got to talk about the kind of emotional mindset things first, because we always say mindset before mechanics, right? We have to teach them to love to read. And what is the thing that school does more than anything? It makes kids hate reading. Why? Because they're forced to read books that they don't enjoy so that they can memorize them, so that they can be tested on things from the books. It does the exact opposite of what books should do. Books are the most enriching, adventurous, exhilarating, exciting creation known to man. And most people don't enjoy this for themselves, let alone instill this joy in their children. Imagine what the world would be like if our children had a love of reading. Imagine what our world would be like if our children loved to pick up a book and read for pleasure and read for excitement and read for adventure. And this is something I've instilled in Madison from a really young age, because I started taking her to the library, and it was this exciting and fun thing that we did together from the time that she was able to read. And so it's always been about a fun experience. It's always been about picking a book that you enjoy to read for the love of reading and developing joy and good habits around this. And even in the summer, actually, as I record this podcast right now, she's sitting and reading, right? And letting her pick things that she wants to read that are going to, help her to develop her vocabulary, have better speaking and presentation skills, help her to learn new concepts, right? And, find a way to build a healthy habit that you can do anywhere, anytime that's offline, right? So many parents want to know how to get their kids offline, don't have them online. Like, period. It's the parents that give them the iPad all the time or give them the phone all the time, or that they see the parents just sit on the phone all the time. Our kids are just going to mimic us, right? So one of the things I make it a habit to do, and people ask me all the time because I share how I read constantly. They're like, how do you have time to read? I'm like, well, first of all, a lot of the time when I'm reading, I'm like, Madison, we're having reading time. Come sit next to me. Go grab a book that you want to read. And she will literally come sit next to me and we will have reading time together. I read my book. She reads her book. And this has now been instilled in her. And it's just a part of what we do pretty much on a daily basis, right? So these are just the little things that really are the big things. And this isn't everything, certainly. What I'll end with there is financial literacy. And I'll talk a little bit about kind of some of the key things that I think when I talk about like the top 5 that I would focus on right away with your kids. And you can start at any age. Obviously, the earlier you start, the better. But regardless of when you're listening to this episode and how old your children are, there's an opportunity to still make an impact on their life and to reintroduce these things in a meaningful way that will make a difference for them. Okay. So number 1 is you have to focus on getting clear on the life skills and the financial skills that your child needs to have to navigate the world successfully on their own. You can simply Google life skills for kids and you can do a printout. And we literally did this. Actually, Billy's mom sent this over to me like months ago. And we've just been going right down the list and we highlight it every single day of all of these life skills for kids. And it forces you to teach them things that maybe you would take for granted or maybe you wouldn't even think to do for them. Okay. I'm just going to pause here for a second. By the way, a lot of people don't know that I have a company called Give Her Courage, the courageous brand that is completely dedicated to instilling courage, confidence, and an entrepreneurial mindset in kids. And a lot of people are not aware of this because I'm not the day-to-day, I don't run the brand day-to-day, but I am an active member in the delivery behind the scenes. I have a business partner who is my best friend of over 20 years. We've been in business for going on 8 years now. And we have a camp coming up in August. It's August 12th to 15th, and it's in the evening. It's virtual, so there's no excuse. It's virtual. Your daughter can attend from absolutely anywhere. It's like an hour and a half each night. And we're going to be teaching Business 101 and entrepreneurial mindset, podcasting for kids, authorship. We're going to be working on dream boards, vision casting. I mean, this is like the introduction to how do you get your daughter to think bigger, dream bigger, and go out in the world and do amazing things. So it's a very low investment. I think it's like a few $100s to have her join. You get to keep all of the recordings. We have special guests coming on that are actual young entrepreneurs, young podcasters, girls that are out there doing incredible things in the world. Again, it's August 12th to 15th. And if you're listening to this podcast right now and you have a daughter that is anywhere between the ages of 9 and 17, there's going to be different breakout rooms for different age groups. You can just DM me on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, the word courage, and I'll send you the link to get your daughter registered. Again, it's happening August 12th through 15th. It is virtual. It is the only camp we're running this year. So this is the only time that your daughter can access this. And again, if she needs to miss any of the sessions, you will get to keep all of the recordings as well. But we're going to be starting on a lot of these foundational things because we know your girls aren't getting these things in school. We know our girls aren't getting these things in school. And the main reason why Amy and I created Give Her Courage, the courageous brand, was because we realized that most of what made us so successful were not things that we learned in traditional education. And they're things we learned kind of in the school of hard knocks out in the working world as young adults. But we wanted to put together courses and programs and places and ways that we could expose girls to these concepts early on to actually instill these things in them so that they were able to be better prepared to go out and be leaders in the world. So again, if you're listening to this episode, you like the conversation, you want to go deeper with it, maybe you don't want to take this all on yourself, you can DM me the word courage on any platform that you are connected to me. So just DM me the word courage and I'll know that you have a daughter ages 9 through 17 and that you want to learn more about the camp. Now, we do have something else that we're going to be revealing later this fall that's in the same realm. I'm going to be very inexpensive, very accessible, but going to be something a little bit more ongoing. So if your daughter can't attend the camp, but you want to be kind of on the wait list for that new offering coming out this fall, still DM me the word courage and I'll make sure that you're on the wait list and get some information as soon as we're ready to do the reveal. Okay, so we need to teach our kids life skills and we need to teach them financial literacy skills. Something as simple as you guys are entrepreneurs, putting your kids on the payroll, but not giving them the money, actually having them work for the money and building that into the expense structure of your company is really, really smart. Obviously, you can work with your tax strategist and your accountant and all of your professionals to get guidance on the correct way to set things up and all of that. But this is a way that you can build them into the generational element of your business. It's also a way that you can start teaching them business skills and giving them exposure to the business in a positive and constructive and meaningful way. And also it reminds you to give them and assign them tasks to do, whether it's at night or on the weekend, that's going to begin to teach them business essentials that they need to know, no matter what career or profession that they are going to pursue. And I think that's the biggest thing, to remind yourself of is that regardless of what your children decide to do with their lives, having an entrepreneurial mindset, having courage, having confidence, having self-worth, having basic business communication skills, that's going to be essential no matter what we're talking about, even if it's a job interview, right? We have to instill these things in our kids early and often in order for them to be set up for success. Simple financial programming, like taking every paycheck that they earn from you and having it divided into 4 categories: save, invest, give, and spend. And this is such a basic foundational thing that I wish I had been taught from an early age that I am now teaching Madison. This is a part of how she is being cultivated and what we're going to be working on in her homeschooling next year. And it's basically in that order. You're going to save so that you have liquid, you have an emergency fund, you have cash that's accessible for all of the expenditures that come up. You're going to invest so that you're putting money towards something that can compound and grow so that you get your money working for you. You're going to give back because if you have enough to invest and you have enough to save, you have enough to do something to help someone who is in need, right? And having the last category be spent, the last category. And if there's one thing when I look at society that has taken so many people off track, it's destroyed marriages, it's ruined people's mental stability. There's so many things. I could go down the rabbit hole and record an entire episode on the debt crisis and what this has done to people and what this has done to their families. If you can teach your children to stay out of debt, if you can teach your children delayed gratification, and if you can give them a financial literacy model that empowers them from a young age to save and to invest and to give back and to have spending be the last thing on the list that is really reserved for essentials that you absolutely need, not just wasteful things that you may want. And then by the time you get them, you no longer you're even excited about them anymore. That one financial model alone will be a complete and total game changer for your child and for their future. Okay. So think about that. Tax-free gifting. Right? The regulations change every year. I think it's something like 14,000 right now you can do per year in tax-free gifting. Obviously, that's something that depending on what age your children are at, that can make a major, major difference in how you're setting them up for life and how you're setting them up for those big expenditures in the future. Putting them on the payroll and having them work for it, I already mentioned this. I do have Madison on the payroll in one of my companies under my personal brand, and I assign her tasks to do. She was actually at one of our events recently, and I literally was like, okay, your assignment while we're here is you're going to do stories, you're going to take pictures on the phone, you're going to capture videos. And so it really gets you thinking about how you can get them involved in the business and how you can teach them to be responsibly present and invested at business things that you are doing. And it also reminds you to teach them how to do things, right? How many entrepreneurs run a business full time and yet their kids know nothing about what they do? They know nothing about the things that you've learned over time that are so incredibly valuable that other people from around the globe pay you to learn from you, and yet your own children have not learned that thing. And this is one of the reasons why next year on Thursdays, which is my client facing day, Madison will be sitting and she will literally be listening to my calls and she will be taking notes and she will be absorbing what I'm teaching, because why am I spending a lifetime being paid by other people to learn these things if my own daughter is not being taught the very things that I've spent a lifetime building this knowledge and expertise around? Right? So she'll be sitting in on those calls. And if your kids go to traditional school, you can pick one recording of yours a week to have your kids listen to and then talk about it afterwards and debrief it and explain and answer their questions. And it's not only going to create a great foundation for your relationship expansion with them, but it's going to ingrain in them that knowledge and expertise. And again, it doesn't matter if they do anything even remotely close to what you do. It's more so about you're exposing them, you're creating new dynamics of relationship and conversation, you're opening up their worldview, and you're helping them to learn something new regardless of how they're going to apply it. And of course, I've had this conversation with Madison so many times. And, I told her that, if she decides that she wants to go to traditional college, that's wonderful. I fully support that. I think that's great. I went to college. I had a great experience. I did not learn a single thing that I use in my business today. I'll just be very clear about that. It was a social experiment for me. And I knew at the time, I knew I needed a college degree in order to get a job because of where the world was and culture. And so I was going for the explicit purpose of getting a college degree because I knew I needed it. I did not learn anything in college that I apply in my business today. There's nothing I got from the classroom there. And so what I've said to Madison many times is, you're going to start working as soon as you're legally able. She's going to work outside the home. I think it's really important for her to get work experience at a job as early as possible and actually to work multiple different jobs to build up her skill sets, her communication skills, her leadership skills. But I said to her, if you want to go to college, you need to save for that. If you want to start a business, I will be an investor in your business. I will be an investor in your business and I will actively participate as an investor so that I can, impart my knowledge and expertise and be a help in getting that off the ground. But that's something for all parents to think about. How can we encourage our kids to be entrepreneurial, and how can we not just give them the money to start a business, but be an investor and then use that as an opportunity to really teach about what that looks like and what that means even. What does it mean to have an investor in your business? Now, what are your responsibilities to that investor now that they gave you money to get that business off the ground? And how does that relationship work? Think about all the implications of what that looks like to teach your children about that. And, I talked about this already, but just financial literacy in general is so key, and teaching them money management. I signed Madison up for something called the Wealthy Kids Investment Club. That's something that we're going to be doing all throughout the year next year together so that she can learn about investing, something that I never learned about. And I'm still kind of like really early stage going through that knowledge and expertise for myself now. And it's something that, why wait and let them go figure this out 30 years later? They could be investing money starting at 8, 9 years old, 10 years old. I don't know what the regulations are. Madison has her own Schwab account, and, we're beginning that process with this investment club that she does. So you have to look up the regulations where you live, obviously, and, when and what you're able to do. But these are just like essential things that the more that you empower your kids with these mindsets and with these kind of modalities going into the way that they approach the world, the more successful they're going to be, and they will be ready to launch. And if you want support and you feel like it's overwhelming and it feels like a lot to you, DM me the word courage and I'll share with you the camp. I'll share with you the upcoming release that we have this fall. It's the entire purpose and focus of Give Her Courage, the Courageous brand. We do have 2 websites, the Courageous brand giveherfriend.com has the camp on it. So if you want to check that out, givehercourage.com has all of our retail and jewelry and books for kids and all of that great stuff. But the bottom line is that we have so much power to shape our child's lives. We have so much power to instill these things in them. And it doesn't need to be perfect. We just need to get started. So this is your invitation to really reconsider the teaching role that you can play in your children's lives and to give them the true and lasting advantage that's going to make a difference in their life, which is not giving them money or things, but it's instilling not only emotional presence, but life skills and really developing world navigation skills that no one can ever take away from them. Thanks for tuning into the show today. And if you know another parent that this would make a meaningful difference for, pass this episode on. I so appreciate you. And if you love the show today, leave me a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget, if you want to learn more about the Courage Camp happening in August, you can DM me the word courage. See you there.